Yes, hi. This is David Marshall from Camino. Wanted to put together a video to hopefully clarify the issues that we're seeing between cities and counties generating their own guides, as well as some of the permit systems out there saying that they have guides within their permit systems as well, and how Camino differentiates itself with its GIS configured guide and how it's different. Uh, First off, what we're finding when we talk with cities and counties, this is an example of the city of Boulder, they have a guide, right? And they say they have a guide. And what we're finding is this one's 10 pages long. I've seen 20-page guides that lay out a lot of good information. The challenge is it's overwhelming for residents, right? They don't know what to do with this, and it doesn't customize their information to their exact needs, right? What if they're in a flood zone, in a historical district, et cetera? How does it change? Energov has built what they're calling a guide right now, a decision engine that's an overlay on top of their Energov system. And it's certainly an improvement and assists people in getting through the permit process. But for the person that isn't ready to apply for a permit, how do they get their questions answered? And currently today in the city of Boulder, we can say, well, do I need help? Yes. And the idea here says, well, I want to do construction. I want to get a building permit, right? And this is helpful stuff, right? It's a residential permit and a single family, and I want to do a addition, right? So now they come to this point, the kind of the fork in the road, and they say, okay, well, do you have questions on what the process is? Do you want to know what the requirements are, or are you ready to apply? Now, if you did apply, uh, the system would assist you in through the process. But if you weren't ready to apply and you were gathering information like Camino's guide would do, you would say, here, listen, I just want to know what the process is. In clicking this, it brings you right to that permit application 10-page guide, right? Doesn't understand where you are, doesn't understand anything about your project really, other than it's an addition and it's a residential project. So that's somewhat helpful. But in the end of the day, this resident is going to end up calling into the city and saying, what do I do? You know, you can see here, they're even talking, hey, things might be different if you're in a floodplain or a wetland, because they don't know. Camino's different. And here's how we are. Here's a great example. This is Charles County, Maryland. Now, Charles County, Maryland has Energov, right? And they have our guide. And they do it as a two-step process, creating a guide or applying for a permit. So in creating a guide, the applicant, again, they're just gathering information, can come in, and they come to a landing page a lot like this. What are you looking to do? A residential permit, and it's an addition, like we were just going through before. The difference now is Camino now says, what's your address, right? Because we have your GIS layers in the background, right? Flood zones, historical zones, and I'll show you how Charles County has that here as well. So here we're going to say my address is Mohawk Court. The reason I selected it, as you can see, is these guys are right on the water, right? So we'll look and say, yeah, that's my house, right? And now Camino goes into a few more questions, simple questions based on the type of project, but it also may be based on the GIS location that they're in. But we're just saying, are you on private well or septic? Is your lot greater than 40,000 square feet? Will you have heating or cooling? Is there going to be new plumbing? Is there going to be new electrical, right? All those can be configured by you based on the specific project and the specific location. So in submitting the answers, we have our guide. And the big thing here in this example, I don't want to go through the whole thing, but first off, they're saying, okay, you're going to go through a sewer review, but in this situation here, it's been indicated that your property is within this critical bay, this critical area, right, along the water. So, hey, you're in a critical area. In this example, they're saying call the conservation district and make sure you're doing it right, right? Let's get it all up front. Maybe if they're saying, hey, I want to put up a chain link fence and they're in a historical district, the city or county can say, well, you can't put a chain link fence up in a historical district. It doesn't match, right? And so the ultimate guide now is based on, these steps are based on their specific situation. In the example of a residential permit located in a critical area, you can see they have links right to their Energov system, but they're letting them know there's special processes because you're in this critical area. So be aware of that, right? So this guide is built for their exact project, but their exact needs, right? So now if we go into the back end of Charles County as an example, and we refresh this, you also have access to all the guides that are being generated. So if someone calls up with a question like the one that we just did, you can quickly find them and go through their information, right? One of the things I wanted to point out is you'll see we have the questions that were asked of the resident, do you have a private well or septic? And they answered yes. But the system is also asking itself questions based on that GIS zoning layer, right? Hey, is it in this zoning layer? No. Is it in this one? No, right? A lot of questions it's asking to customize this guide. We also give an active map for you so you know where the property is, but also you have access to GIS information on the property, right? So we can pull that right down, and that might be helpful for you here as well. I'm not going to go through all the functionality here, but the last thing I wanted to share, because we're talking about this GIS configured process, is the layers, right? And this is these are Charles County's layers. You can add and maintain all the layers that are pertinent to you, but I just wanted to share all the layers that Charles County is utilizing: historical trust layers, zoning layers. Camino can even say, hey, I'm trying to put a multifamily house on my property. Well, if it isn't zoned for multifamily, maybe it's only zoned for single family homes, we can stop them right there and say, stop, you're not zoned for that, and maybe point them in the correct direction to planning or whatever else. But hopefully this gives you all a distinction between a guide, a paper 10-page guide, a guide that Energov calls a guide on their system, and Camino's GIS configured process guide. Appreciate it. Thanks for your time today. Bye.